Well, um, hello everyone. This is something I've been thinking about doing it for a while now. Um, it's something that it's been difficult for me to actually speak about. But lately, it's been kind of like on top of my head and just try to help others going through the same thing that I went through. Um, in a lot of ways. So I may get emotional with this, but it has gotten a lot better than what it used to be. Um, I'm very blessed and very lucky to have these things that happen to me, like between my family and friends, supporting me through all that stuff, and even though it felt just like anything bad that could have happened within those 5 months, um, they happened, and kind of like for a long time felt like ground zero, when you're technically can't see anything other than the battle itself. But as time goes on and you work through things, you kind of get up on the hill and you start to see things a little further out, and good news started to come in, and things just becomes easier in a way. A lot of it's still very hard. So, a little background: that originally got diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer of March 6, 2025. How I found out about this: I had flown from Tennessee, Knoxville area, to the Keys, Fort Lauderdale area, like where I grew up. And after being in the Keys with my friends and seeing people that I haven't seen in a few months or a year or so, we're hanging out in the Keys on a Saturday, and then Sunday I started vomiting, extremely pain in my stomach, could not stop, was vomiting anything from 20 to 30 times a day. Nothing would literally stay inside of me. So I went to the hospital on Tuesday, and they said I had a stomach blockage, which wasn't true. So I stayed down in Florida for, the better part of the whole week, really. And then Saturday I ended up flying back to Tennessee. Went back home, and by Saturday evening, I started having cramps and muscle movement and toe movements on my foot, and I just noticed this pain and didn't quite understand what was going on. So I pulled off the blankets, and my big toe from all the other toes were completely separated without me even doing anything. So I'm like, well, this is not right. Obviously something is wrong, so I gotta go to the ER. So I ended up going to the ER. They said I had mesenteric artery blockage or something like that. So surgery is likely required. So they admitted me to the hospital. In fact, I almost died 3 times during that time, and I'll cover each of those times, within the last 5 months. First time was that night. The doctor said that because of my dehydration, my heart, kidney, liver was about to fail due to my potassium level being extremely low and life-threatening. And would I have stayed home, there was a likelihood that I would have actually died at home that day. So I'm 4 years old. I do have 2 grown kids and a grandson. So my oldest, she's married, and she blessed us with this amazing little boy. And my son, he's 19. He's the youngest, and it's just a great kid. So their mom and I, we have been divorced for a long time, but we're still in each other's lives, because of the kids and whatnot. So that was pretty scary for me, to say the least. So they finally released me from the hospital on a Wednesday, and by Friday night, I am back at a different hospital at this point, with the same symptoms, just vomiting, and told them what they diagnosed me with. They admitted me to the hospital. They put me on an IV. They were telling me that the records from that previous hospital would not be available until Monday morning. So I, against medical advice, checked myself out of the hospital. And by doing so, Sunday night, I was having extremely symptoms again, vomiting again, nonstop, not being able to eat, not being able to drink, completely dehydrated. So I went back to the hospital to wait for the records to come back the next morning. They finally do their own exams, and they found out that my CA19 levels were about 2,300. So, and they saw a mass in my pancreas, which they suspected to be cancer, and that was extremely difficult for me. I didn't want to believe it. I was alone. Didn't have any friends or family around me at that particular time. And I just was like, you know what? It could be something else. So let's not freak out until an actual biopsy comes, and that's what they wanted to do. So the next day they do a biopsy, and one of the things that I do feel that it's missing a lot in the medical field, and for whatever reason, is the lack of compassion to the patients. Now, they have to be realistic with you and kind of tell you those things, but when they did the first biopsy, they told me that he was benign. So, at this point, I'm ecstatic, extremely, happy and all that. And as this oncologist is giving me this news, my mom at this point had already fallen in, my sister, my ex that we had been broken up for about a month, came back into my life. So everybody was extremely happy about it. But he was like, I shot the doctor's dog. He wasn't happy, giving me those news. Now, granted, he thought he did a bad job, and that he wanted to do the biopsy again. So we agreed to do that, and then he apologized, but he also said that he diagnosed somebody else wrong before. And it was actually cancer. He just didn't take enough tissues, and he didn't want to do the same mistake with me. So I guess I can appreciate that. So the second time, they took a biopsy from my abdomen wall because he saw something that could be a spread to it. And sure enough, it was malignant. So it was positive, for cancer cells. I cannot tell you enough that my ground left, like from beneath me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. Like things just kind of goes through your head. That you can't put thoughts, like you can't think straight. And you just kind of like start holding on to hope and all that. Like I told my oncologist, as he was telling me, the same guy, as he was telling me this, that I was going to beat it, and that I had a God that did miracles, and I was a man of faith, and these things were gonna turn around. He kind of smirked a little bit, which we're all allowed to believe what we want to believe in. But it was kind of like he was happy giving me the news that he found the cancer, and I thought that was very insensitive. If I was a doctor, I guess my approach to a diagnosis like this would have been different. Yes, I would tell my patient the truth, but I would also give them examples of people that have beat it, and that doesn't need to come with a life sentence. And they tried to hide it from me. My life expectancy at the time. My mom did ask the doctor, to keep the time frame away from me, and he said that he couldn't do that. The only way he couldn't do that if I didn't ask. And knowing my stubborn ass, the way I know that would be my next question out of my mouth. And he said, 4 months without chemo, and about a year with chemo. My spreads were to my abdomen wall, my lymph nodes, and in the pancreas. And I think in the colon as well. I can't quite recall that, to be honest. At the time, having the support that I had my ex back that, I loved very much and wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. Was there with me, like, throughout the whole time. We were back together, like, at this point. And then things started fumbling. So, after, I couldn't eat for 2 months, number one. So I had an energy tube down my nose, and I could barely put any liquids in. I was on IV. I was taking the TPN, I believe what's called, is this liquid solution they give you through the IV in your arm. In the hospital, I was doing that, and then I wanted to get out of the hospital very badly. As soon as I was able to at least drink some water and liquids or whatnot. So 2 months of that hospitalization. I was able to actually get out of the hospital with a TPN at home, and it felt like a prison every night, because I would have to have that for 12 hours every day as my body gets fed and try to eat during the day. Small portions, liquid diet mainly. So that was very difficult. So I don't hold anything against her, whatever reasons she might have. She and I, my ex and I, were living back together at the time. And she was my mom had flown back to Boston with my sister and my nephew. Kids were still in Florida. I was pretty much withholding a lot of the stuff that was happening to me, to them, from them, just because I didn't want them to worry about it, and I was confident I was going to beat it. So I started doing chemotherapy, and you do go through phases when that stuff kind of starts happening to you. The first one is anger. You're very angry. You don't have anybody to blame. Not even you. It's kind of like your body betrayed you. And you start thinking, I must have done something to, deserve all this. And, I'm considered myself a pretty decent guy. I consider myself a very fair person. Honest and loyal and all that, kind of carry a normal common sense, which seems to lack in a lot of people. If I thought I was a decent guy before, I bettering myself every single day to actually be better now than I ever was. And with that being said, after my second chemotherapy, they did a new CT scan because I asked my doctor, was like, well, what if the blockage in my stomach, and I had a gastric surgery to bypass my stomach from the tumor, because the tumor was actually blocking my intestines from being able to digest food. So I was concerned that the surgery didn't work and the tumor grew and all that stuff. So they did a new CT scan, and all the spread, at this point, I want to say about 80% of them, thank God, was gone. So I had one, I believe, on one or two of my abdomen wall that was still left. The one in the pancreas had not grown, and the surgery was working fine. It was just taking time to heal, and my body to kind of relearn this new pathway that the food needs to take now. So then I go back on and third chemotherapy. My ex ends up breaking up with me, doing that, and we were living together at that time. And so when I say things start fumbling, I started to lose things in my life that I had no saying whatsoever. So I would, if you think about it, it's like I lost my job. I mean, I'm still employed to this day, and we're almost in August, with the company. And I was a manager at a car dealership in Knoxville, and, I'm still employed with them, but I felt like I lost my job, lost my health, lost my relationship, lost my home, because I had to move out and move to Boston to where I had support. And my number one support had just abandoned me. Not to feel pity for myself or anything like that. But I felt discarded, kind of left to die. That was the biggest, most painful pain I've ever felt in my life. Because she was one of the main reasons I wanted to live. I wanted to survive this so I could have given her like the life that she never had, the loving family that she didn't have, given her history and whatnot. So it was just extremely, extremely hard for me at that point. I guess I was just shocked. When somebody, and again, I don't hold anything against her. Like I forgave her. I don't, can't even call it a mistake, because people are with people that, if they don't want to be, just, I guess, rather be honest, but when you hear that you are the favorite person to that person in the world, and she tells you she loves you in the morning and breaks up with you in the afternoon, and you believe those things, it makes very confusing and understanding of the situation very hard. So I guess for the first couple of weeks, I was extremely shocked. I had moved out, went to a friend's house. I wanted to do at least one more chemotherapy in Tennessee before I relocated myself to my parents' home in Boston. So during that time, I just went on zombie mode. It's like, I'm fighting for my life. This is my number one thing right now. But then you move out of state and you put all your stuff in storage. You leave your truck at your friend's house. It's like you just don't have the normalcy of the life that you had before. And all these things starts to pile up. Then you go from angry, to the phase of fear and desperation. Because you still know it's a serious diagnosis. You still know it's a very hard thing to deal with, and the survival rate, was anything from 3% to 13% on recent studies and all that stuff. And you don't qualify for surgery, and you're waiting for the CT scans to come through to see if the tumor is progressing or not. You're doing chemotherapy every 2 weeks. You're really not doing anything else. I mean, I was blessed enough to not have a lot of pain or any pain whatsoever, but I still kept losing weight because I, went from 170 pounds, mainly muscle, to 143. like real fast and skin and bones kind of deal. Um, and all these thoughts just start going through your head, and you just don't know like what the outcome of the situation will be. And you pray all the time. You catch me all the hours of the night, outside on the deck, away from my parents, my family, just bawling my eyes out, crying out to God, praying and asking for a miracle. At the same time, the zombie phase kind of goes away, and you start missing that person that you used to have, and going through a heartbreak as you're going through a cancer treatment and you fight for your life. I can't put words in it. Not just because of the heartbreak itself, but how it makes you feel, how it makes you, see things in a different way, that you never saw yourself. Like you said, you see yourself unworthy, when before you're full of confidence, and you're outgoing, you're extrovert, and you got tons of friends and all that stuff. And my support, I cannot thank them enough. My friends and family and people from church, and there's just so many people that were praying for me that I felt guilty. I felt guilty that I was putting so much effort, and I couldn't get away from that effort, and that loving feeling that I still had to that person, that I was holding on to it because she was extremely important to me, and that I was not taking for granted, but not appreciating. Even though I was appreciating, but I was not emphasizing my focus on the good people that were around me. The friends that flew from Florida to Tennessee to see me. The friends that flew from Florida to Boston to see me. The people that were calling me day in and day out, text messages, like an overwhelmed amount of reaching out in so many ways, in so many different things that they could do for me. They done it. I was blessed enough to have that, and I felt really guilty that something else was taking my focus. And on top of that, once I had flown into Boston, I got a bad pneumonia, so bad that they thought I had tuberculosis, and about 75% of my lungs were shot. They had to suspend chemotherapy for a while until I got better. I almost died at the hospital, at that time as well. Then thank God, and it feels like sometimes like you just want the results right away, right? And you just want things to change, like, dramatically. And a lot of times they don't. And I felt alone, even though I had this amazing support, like, around me. I just felt extremely alone. I felt that I had nobody that could actually understand me, that has gone through the situation that I was going through, to give me hope. Even though all my friends and families were doing that, absolutely, they were, I had, like I said, I'm 40. I had many of my age grown men that I've known for a long time crying on the phone with me. They couldn't believe it, that stuff like was happening to me, that I didn't deserve this, And so it did affect a lot of people in a lot of ways, as well, and that's when you really do see like true friendship comes through, right? I had some that distanced from me, but 99% of them didn't. In fact, I've got countless phone calls, visits, um, text messages that if you read, you cry. I'll dearly hold it for the rest of my life. So that was the second time I almost died. Not directly related to the tumor itself, but yes, some, due to the cancer. Then things starts turning around and looking up. My last 2 CT scans didn't mention anything about any spreads whatsoever. The sad part of it is, like, I had to bring that up to my oncologist, right? Because now at this point, I'm just grasping to every single small, little flake of hope that I can hold on to. And I noticed that they didn't mention anything on my abdomen walls. They didn't mention anything on my liver. They didn't mention anything on my colon, intestines, or, lymph nodes, and any of that. It was just the one in the pancreas. And even that was, like, shrinking a little bit. So I had to bring that up to them. It's like, yeah, like, they're not mentioning anything on those. So I'm like, so you're basically telling me that it's only my pancreas now. And they, my oncologist was like, yeah, it's like, why wouldn't you just lead with that, right? So then I heard about, before that, I heard about the knife procedure. And so I kept in touch with Dr. Dunaway in Hollywood, Florida. Spoke to his wife, and they absolutely gave me the most amount of hope I could ever have from a doctor, that I've ever had from a doctor. And even though at that time we had not met in person, they were, he would FaceTime me like every other weekend or every 3 weeks or so, just to see how everything was going. And the first time he saw me without the NG tube down my nose, was like, wow, you look a lot better. It looks like, and I told him about the last two CT scans. They were not showing any spreads anywhere else. And he said, well, 2 more chemotherapy, and I think we can do the surgery. And they are kind of like faith-based. But they gave me testimonials of people that have been going on 12 years after they had the surgery, 13 years. People that were given 6 months to live and going on 10 years. And, all that stuff that I didn't hear from any other doctor whatsoever. I got friends, they're doctors, they're in the medical field. And, even they were, like, not very optimistic about it. Now, these are people these are friends of mine that, I would take a bullet from, for them. And even they were, like, scared with all that, and you kind of go in the rabbit hole of, like, going to Facebook cancer groups. You search online for, any motivation. You go to YouTube to watch videos of people that have gone through that kind of stuff. Now, one thing I can tell you that I didn't have until this day, I still don't, is to actually have a conversation with someone who has gone through the things that I've gone through, and made it. I know there are plenty out there, but that is one thing that would have probably made my loneliness in the midst of it, that I would have felt like somebody knew what I was going through. Now, my friends and family, they tried, but until you actually go through something like this, you don't know how lonely it is. You don't know how hard it is. And you go from the phase of anger to the phase of fear. And then, at some point, you're going to arrive at the phase of acceptance. And to me, that was the worst. Because at the phase of acceptance, you're basically ready for both fight or flight, you know, but you also accept that might be the real end, and that you may get called home, you know, at such an early age. And I had a friend of mine like pray with me on the phone one time, and he called to see how I was doing, you know, if I needed anything. And I told him, like, hey, like, what I need is prayer. You know, I don't need anything, you know, like, I need prayer. You know, because it seemed like I couldn't hear God's voice, or even remotely kind of see him, like, through this storm that it seemed that I was going through alone, you know. And one thing that he said during that prayer, and he's cried on the phone, I'm crying on this side, he's in Florida, I'm here in Boston, and one thing that he said that reminded me that I only have one guy to ask for, right? And if not him, then I have nothing. I can't go to other gods, you know, or any of that stuff. I believe there's one God, and, you know, I'm Christian, and I held on to that, and I told God that I would not stop asking, because I had nobody else to ask for. And what he felt to be very lonely, and what it felt to be like I was left to die, or, you know, any of that, and you kind of accepting that, you know, this might be like I might go home, you know, given all that. So, but because of the good news, and, you know, it started like get over the hill kind of deal, and I could see the war zone a little further out, and see clearance in different areas that I could get to, and kind of like get out of the ground zero area, and kind of have like escape route. You know, I decided to go back to Tennessee, go back home, see my friends that were there, you know, see the people at the dealership that I was working at. You know, they gave me so much support, and everybody had my back. So I take the chemotherapy off on Thursday. You know, I flew in Saturday. I guess I did not see how weak my body was, and how I guess weak is the right word anyway, but anyway, how deprived of nutrients and things like that I was, that I flew in Saturday, went to my friend's house. He wasn't even there. He was in South Carolina visiting his parents, who dad happened to have colon cancer like around the same time, prostate cancer, I believe. So my truck was there anyway, so I just, you know, let myself in the house, and, you know, I was going to be there for 10 days, like I said. And then kind of get together with a couple of my friends on Saturday. You know, still going through the whole healing process, like with the ex, kind of hoping to run into her, hope I wouldn't. You know, things like that. And then Sunday, I was meeting a friend to go out on the boat. And as I hit the highway, and I'm on the phone with a friend at this time, you know, for a good 30 minutes or so. And she's talking, and, you know, I'm telling her where I'm going and all that. And I black out. I black out at 70 miles an hour driving a full-size 2020 Silverado pickup truck. I black out so hard that I went 3/4 of a mile hitting vehicles, completely out. In fact, when I woke up, the paramedics were already there. They already had laid out the cones to deviate traffic. Police was there. And I woke up a good 30, 40 minutes later. My breathing was so low that they had to bring me back. Then they was like, well, I think you should go to the hospital. And I kind of felt good. Not good, but I kind of felt okay. So I was like, well, can you guys take me home? They were like, well, man, I'm telling you, like, you need to go to the hospital. You know, all I had was this on my nose and a bruise on my hand, which that is gone, but this still lingering here. So, you know, scrape on my nose and, you know, the airbag or whatever it was. But, so they take me to the hospital. And then it starts to hit me, the sequence of events, I guess. Like when, you know, I'm glad I went to the hospital because I definitely needed it. Just whatever they gave me, like it felt like it felt like I felt good at the time, but obviously I wasn't. I kept vomiting and all that stuff's happening. Then the police officer is doing the police report of everything that has happened, like during the accident and whatnot. And after he was done, this is how amazing God is, right? It's like I didn't notify my family. I didn't notify my friends. Was just that friend of mine that I was on the phone with. She kept texting like EMT, please call this number, just in case somebody saw the number on my phone, even though I was out and she thought I was dead. That was a bunch of missed phone calls from her. And at that time, I kind of came back to myself a little bit, and the sequence of events, like I said, like it hit me. And it was just like a snowball effect. I didn't have anybody there. I was sitting at this bed. I was laying on this bed at the hospital, and I had no one. You know, because I didn't contact anyone, didn't want to scare anyone, which is a fault of mine. Kind of try to take things on my own anyway, and very hard to ask for help. So this cop, after he was done, he came over to me, and I start bawling. Like at this point, I'm just like crying my eyes out. Comes over to my bed and says, "What's going on, man? Like, is everything all right?" And I start telling him everything that has happened to me from beginning to the end. And he just sits there, finishes work, just sits there by the foot of my bed and just starts listening to me. Complete stranger, already done with his work. Just just sits there and, listens to me and just, start telling me like his life experiences too, that all that stuff that happened today, as he was saying, was like, all this that happened today is just property. Like, insurance will cover that. It's like, I cannot tell you, how sorry I am that you're going through all this stuff, like, in such a short period of time. And he tells me his story, that he's looking over to a guy next to him that he had arrested before, and he wasn't paying attention, and he ended up like running just to see if the guy recognized him and whatnot, and he didn't pay attention, and unfortunately ran the light or something, and got into an accident. He was being sued for $300,000 or whatever. I was like, I told him, I was like, you want to switch roles? Like, I'll take a $300,000 debt over and everything that happened to me. He was like, man, like, I'm just counting my blessings, after hearing the things that happened to you, like how I didn't die that day in the car crash as well. It's God's hand, like, protecting me. It's kind of crazy to say and think that, but whenever I start bringing my ex to church and praying for her a lot, like on a regular basis, that's when things started like falling down in my life, but I still pray for her to this day. I want her to know the truth, and that God is good despite like what happens to us. And even though I'm kind of still going through this, like, in fact, I'm getting chemo for the next 2 days. Started today, so tomorrow and the day after I'm still doing that. I had the dental knife procedure done in Florida. The tumor cells are 100% dead. Any tumor cells in my body is dead. So I go from just doing chemo, because once the tumor gets shocked, with the dental knife procedure, it does die 100%. It's irreversible, and the metabolic part of the tumor was already dead even before I had the surgery. And my miracle literally went from being diagnosed with stage 4, which spreads to several parts of my body, to essentially cancer-free in July. And I'm hoping to be completely NED on the scans, by the end of August. That's a miracle. Okay, now granted, I've also changed my diet, have taken everything you told me that could or would cure cancer or heal your body, just you name it, I've done it. Like ivermectin, like fenbendazole, like soursop tea, papaya juice, all these things in high dosage, turmeric, turkey tail mushroom, and on and on and on and on and on, every single day. I've done it. I start focusing on the reasons I have to live versus contemplating on the ones that people have told me I had to give up. So in our reality, it's like your future does not belong to you, nor a doctor. The future belongs to God, and now it's literally all there is. Not the past, not the future. It's now. And I've learned to appreciate the moment before it becomes a memory. I self-analyze myself in many ways and how I've taken people for granted. And I went back and made amends, to those relationships, because by no means I'm perfect. But God has given me a second chance, and I'm not letting it go to waste. So I am telling everybody that I meet that already knows me, that God has done a miracle in my life, which it is true, I don't deserve. God did not give me cancer. He allowed it to happen. Okay? And I've chose to look at the positive sides of things, even when I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And believe you me, there were more days than not that I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But he never let go of me. I let go of a lot of grudges. Not that I carry a lot of grudges against people and whatnot, but the relationship, like being broken up during chemotherapy, that was devastating. It's not necessarily for what she did. Again, we all have our reasons, and the future belongs to God only, and I can't say what tomorrow will bring, or who tomorrow will bring into my life, but it was more like how I felt, how these things made me feel, and how unworthy of living I felt for a brief moment there. Needless to say, it happened. And that's when you start to lose hope, and that's the phase of acceptance. And that was the worst for me, because it's a double-edged sword that you both... I never dropped the ball as far as knowing that I was going to beat this, not me, but God, because the problem was too big for me to actually do it on my own, right? So that's kind of like better, because then he has to do it. It's like a little kid that goes got candy, and the adult holding a bowl full of candy says, like, well, you can have one handful, no more. So the little kid goes, instead of grabbing his hand and putting it in the bowl, he grabs the man's hand and put his hand in the bowl, so he can get more candy. So I guess that's kind of maybe a silly analogy, but just let him do it for you. Don't stop praying, and stop believing, don't stop asking for help. Seek, all the possible help you can possibly find. And my prospect of life has changed, and it has changed in a sense that things that I thought was important, they're not anymore. Things that bothered me, that wouldn't make sense an hour from now, or a week from now, or a month from now, that I wouldn't even remember it. I started to analyze those things now and just kind of go with the flow. It takes work, but after you see the other side of the coin, then you really, really don't, I don't want to say like you don't care, but you really don't put effort in things that don't matter. You know, your friends and family are very important. You know, have those people that got you back. You know, reasons you have to live and keep going and keep pushing. You know, because you want to be there for them. Because they're there for you. Things that, you know, I should give you a silly example since I'm in the car business. Is if a client doesn't want to buy a car after, you know, one of my guys, or I spent like an hour or two with him, so what? I'm not gonna let that take the rest of my day. Somebody cuts me off in traffic. Traffic's too heavy, it's too rainy, it's too sunny, it's too hot, it's too cold. None of that matters. Okay? All of those things are maybe happening for a reason, and the Bible says that all things work in favor of those who love God. So faith becomes stronger in your life when it goes from what if that happens, that's fear, to even if. Like, even if this happens to me, I know that God's good and has a better plan for me, even though I may not see it now. So, you know, I hope this video can help at least one person. You know, I want to get involved into local cancer groups to be that person for somebody else that I didn't have and still don't have. Is that person that has gone through and, you know, beat it with the help, you know, of the great Almighty. You know, whether it was through medicine or just flat out miracle, like, I don't know, and I don't care. However the blessings gets to me, I just wanted to get to me. And I want to be the support that my friends and family have been for me to somebody else going through the same thing that I've gone through that they may not have. You know, and I've lost what it felt like everything, including people, you know. So God can be shown in my life that all I need is Him. Even if I didn't have anybody, I still have Him. So if this video can help at least like one person, that'll do. So there is hope out there. Be your best advocate when it comes down to that kind of stuff. Okay? You are worthy of living. You're worthy of love. The cure is out there. Okay? Don't believe everything your oncologist says. Look for second opinions. You know, get into groups and listen to people's testimonies and choose not to be part of the bad side of the statistic. Okay, be the one that thrives through it. Make memories. You know, appreciate the moments before they become memories. Don't take people for granted. Set boundaries. You know, love hard. Like I'm the one that cannot hide my emotions. I've always been this way. You know, and helping others has always made my life full and always made my soul happy. And I'm extremely excited for the rest of my life. I'm extremely excited for what God's going to do through me for others. You know? And don't be afraid to reach out if you have questions, like comment on the videos, whatever. Like, this is kind of my first time posting on YouTube or whatever platform I decide to post at, but I'm so grateful. These tears are They're not tears of sadness anymore. These are tears of happiness, gratitude, immense gratitude for what God has done for me and through me, and for all my family and friends that been there shoulder to shoulder with me. And I don't wish this on anybody, but sometimes God allows those things to happen. And I hope it doesn't happen to you. But if it does, then I hope this can help. And like I said, I want to get involved in a lot of local groups so I can help. I don't care about giving somebody a bicycle or whatever. I want to actually make an impact on someone's life. And keep praying for me if you are a person of faith. I can always use an extra prayer, our battle it's not always against flesh, even though we have our battles within ourselves with our own flesh. But a lot of it is spiritual. I believe that. And greater is what's in us and what's in the world. And let the Holy Spirit live inside of you. Jesus Christ is our Savior. And God's always good. He's always been good. It has not changed. And I'm just thankful. I'm just happy, and I'm excited for the next chapter of my life will bring. And I'll be around for at least another 50 years. I believe that. And if there's anything that I can do, I can add to your life, please let me know. Try to put a smile on somebody's face, because this world is harsh, and be the difference. Be the reason somebody smiles when the whole world, or the rest of the world, is trying to wipe it off. I heard that somewhere, and I think it's true. Be kind to one another. Don't be quick to anger. Work on yourself daily, and your relationships daily. Love it's not just a feeling, it's a commitment. And we all deserve somebody who wants to be next to us and be part of our lives and all that stuff. And so, that's that. I'm gonna finish right here. I might be running out of things to say. But that's it.